What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and let's talk some puck. We haven't talked Flyers maybe for the past couple of weeks since the draft lottery, probably when the Flyers got the 12th overall pick in the NHL draft, and over the past couple of days, things have been spicy. Things have been very, very, very intriguing. Now, nothing's confirmed. Nothing, we don't know the full details about everything. It's all speculation at this point. But it kind of feels like what we're going to be talking about today really has the possibility of happening very soon. And probably before the season starts, maybe that could be a possibility. Because we're talking about Matvei Michkov. Matvei Michkov, the next, generational franchise piece of the Philadelphia Flyers organization that they drafted 7 overall in last year's draft. There were all the talks going before that draft on how difficult it was going to be to get him over from Russia, get him over from the KHL because of all the geopolitical stuff, on how we find out after the draft that he tells specific teams that I don't want to be drafted by you, and he tells the Flyers that he wants to be a Philadelphia Flyer, and now it sounds like he's doing all the things possible to get to the Flyers as soon as he possibly can. Obviously, he wasn't going to come in his first year. He plays over in the KHL with the Sochi team after he got loaned by SKA because they didn't have room for him on his team. He plays for Sochi, even though Sochi is one of the worst teams in the KHL. He's one of the best players by far on that team, and he's, making some record-breaking numbers on the points per game and everything like that, shattering some guys like Alex Ovechkin, Kaprizov, Artemi Panarin, Kucherov, all those type of names. He's nasty. He's nasty. That's the bottom line there. Matvei Michkov is a very nasty piece. He's going to be a fantastic player. And we get some interesting stuff on Sunday morning. Interesting. And like I said, none of this is confirmed. None of this is confirmed. It is all speculation. And if you don't follow Hockey News Hub on Twitter, he has a lot of stuff that comes over from overseas in terms of prospect news, just, news for NHL players that could possibly come from overseas, more in towards with the KHL because he has a lot of KHL following there, and he's very in tune to Matvei Michkov stuff, so a lot of Flyers, people go to him to see like anything that's breaking out of Russia because he brings a lot of Russian sources, a lot of Russian, articles that talk about stuff that's going on in the KHL. And he did bring up an article that was about this Matvei Michkov stuff, and we're going to bring that up eventually. Gonna have to translate because it's written in Russian, but we'll continue as it goes. So it was on May 19th at 9:04 in the morning. Just hashtag MM39 widget with the the eye emoji where, the eye staring emoji, basically, the two eyeballs. And, obviously Matvei Michkov, he wears number 39. So then he retweeted that and saying, what does this mean in all capitals for the Flyers? SKA head coach Roman Rotenberg says there will be news about Matvei Michkov soon. Some legal details remain to be resolved. That's interesting. So this is from SKA's head coach. And we all heard from, past stuff that, talking about Matvei Michkov, how I believe it was the head coach of SKA thinks it is either it's up to what Matvei wants to do. Matvei and his agency thinks it's better for him to come over to the NHL and play in the NHL United States, or play in North America, basically, because that he thinks that's what's best for his game. And it sounds like right now the coach of SKA just wants to do what's best for Matvei. He honestly thinks it could be better for him to come to the NHL, basically, but still, there's a lot of legal things that have to be done in order for Michkov to come over to the NHL. I'm sure Danny Briere and Keith Jones are trying to wrap this under the books and trying to keep it hidden, because obviously when all this stuff comes out, the Flyers are playing stupid. Even like a lot of the Flyers beat reporters are saying like, oh, the Flyers don't know anything about this. We're just going to be waiting and seeing until what happens and everything like that. But the funny thing is they're not outright denying the reports. So even in the KHL, they're not even denying the reports. So that's something that you have to look at. They're not denying anything. They're just, playing dumb. That's the bottom line here. They know what's happening. They know they're trying to get Michkov over here. They don't want to screw anything up in the negotiations. They don't want to promise something, and then something happens to where it screws up, and then, he doesn't come over this year. So it's basically just a wait-and-see process at this point. But, we just got to wait and see what happens with all of this stuff. And it's some very juicy details. And because I liked a lot of these posts from Hockey News Hub and just a lot of things that, basically just came out of here. So basically, he also linked on that same day, on May 19th, he linked a article from, I believe this is called Sports Express in Russia. So I'm going to bring up this article. I'm going to have to translate it through Google. So it definitely is going to be probably some mistranslation in there. So I definitely got to find so Google's going to automatically translate this for me. So the title of the article, this is from Arthur Kierulin. Hopefully I pronounced that right. So the headline of the article, this was put out on May 19th at around 1700 military time. The headline of the article, finally, Michkov will continue his career in Philadelphia. And as we go through this article, it is not that long of an article. According to Sports Express, SKA forward Matvei Michkov will continue his career in Philadelphia. The contract with St. Petersburg club will be terminated until 2026. The rights to the hockey player with the KHL remain with, SKA. So that basically means that if Michkov ever chooses to return to the KHL any time of his career, SKA has his rights. So he can't just go and freely choose a team that he wants to go to in the KHL. If he goes back to the KHL, he's going right back to SKA because they have his rights. And so basically it's just listing his stats. It's not that big of an article. It's just basically stating the obvious there. So that is something that is interesting there from Sports Express. That's a KHL report. So he translated this, and also Hockey News Hub, he clarifies everything, saying that it means Matvei Michkov's contract would expire in 2026 and will be terminated. And then SKA retains Michkov's rights so they retain his rights until 2026. So if something happens to where he has to go back to the KHL for some reason, he's owned by SKA. So if he chooses to go back to the KHL, he can choose, after 2026. Maybe later on in his career, if he finds a way to get back to the KHL, he could choose any team he wants to go to. But right now, SKA owns his rights. And as I'm scrolling through basically everything here, Anthony Sanfilippo posted something on May 19th because a lot of the Flyers, beat reporters were trying to get under this, Charlie O'Connor, Anthony DeMarco, Anthony Sanfilippo, all this stuff. So this is one of the first tweets from Anthony Sanfilippo. So he says, I've been told by the Flyers source that they are in the process of trying to figure out if the Michkov rumors is true or not. At this time, they truly don't know if it's accurate. This will evolve quickly, though, one way or another. Stay tuned. Because we also do got to remember that when originally these rumors surfaced around a couple of weeks ago, when they were talking about what's best for Matvei, I believe it was the head coach of SKA Moscow or St. Petersburg that was basically saying that it's going to come down to somewhere in June. So what it sounds like, I think Danny Briere and Keith Jones are trying to get this settled before the NHL draft. I think if we find this out before the draft, that sets a clear plan in motion for what Danny Briere wants to try to do for this offseason, especially at the draft. I think they're trying to get this thing done now and very quickly. And we're almost in June. We're basically at the end of May right now. We're like a couple of weeks left in May. And this news can happen very quickly at any point in June. And like I said, I think Danny Briere is trying to get this done before the draft happens. And that's something that we can look forward to. Anthony DeMarco did retweet the Anthony Sanfilippo post saying that at this point, the Flyers brass is not in the loop as to what Michkov's contract or situation is. But if the rumor is true, the next step would be to negotiate a contract to bring him over to North America. But basically, for all of this stuff, the Flyers can't do anything in regards to terminating Michkov's contract with the KHL. That has to be done between Michkov, a third-party thing, and the SKA team. Michkov would have to either buy out his own contract with his own money that he's been making over in the KHL, or a third-party broker finds a way to split the contract and just terminate it so Michkov can come over to North America. That's basically, the Flyers really can't do anything about it. The Flyers can't send money over to SKA and buy out his contract. That would be tampering and all that stuff. The NHL's not allowed to do that. So it's basically just a wait-and-see process for the Flyers, even though I'm sure Danny Briere, Keith Jones, Dan Hilferty, they're all in the loop. They're just playing dumb at this point. That's what I'm seeing about right now. And then And then Anthony DeMarco said, to clarify, by not in the loop, as in it's in regards to not being certain that the contract rumor is true or not, basically. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And then another post from Anthony DeMarco. My read on the situation is that the negotiation right now is between Michkov, his agent, and SKA, centering around how much the team will be compensated to terminate the contract. If the money is right, SKA is open to Michkov moving to North America earlier than expected. So we're just going to have to wait and see on that front. There's a lot more tweets that have been happening over the past 24 hours at this point, so I'm basically trying to scroll for my likes and trying to see the specific posts here. So this was from 10 hours ago from Hockey News Hub. SKA head coach Roman Rotenberg has had every chance to shoot down the Michkov rumors if they were not true, but he hasn't. He just shot down another player leaving SKA rumor, so take that for what you will. And then basically, I don't think he's posted anything ever since, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to go back through his channel or his page, basically just stating everything here. Yeah, there's another article right here. Let's see. There's an interview. So there's an interview with Roman Rotenberg where he offers a different opinion on Matvei Michkov leaving for the NHL. So if I could bring up this article, I'm sorry, there's a lot of articles that have been coming out over the past, and a lot of them are from Russian sources. So these are going to be a lot of mistranslations. So, okay. Roman Rotenberg, if Michkov does not play in the first, okay, so so there was something that was going around that someone's mistranslating the article, or it's just a mistranslation of the article in general. So right, the headline of this article says that if Michkov does not play on the first line in Philadelphia, he's coming back to the KHL. That's a mistranslation. A lot of people are saying it says if he doesn't play if he's not playing in the NHL, he's going to come back to the KHL. Basically, he's not going to play in the AHL. And obviously, I don't expect Danny Briere and Keith Jones to send him back down to Lehigh Valley. I don't think that's going to happen. They're not going to put their franchise cornerstone piece that obviously is ready for NHL action. He's too good to play in the AHL. You let him learn the NHL game. Let him adapt there. He is NHL ready. He has the skills. He has the mold. Time for him to learn the NHL game, and I think he's ready for it. And obviously, I don't think Danny Briere and Keith Jones are going to force him into the AHL. And they're going to have to put Torts in that situation too. And I think Torts understands the situation too as well. I'm sure he's in the loop. And also remember this, Torts said a while ago about, the style of play that the Flyers have been doing basically this entire season. This was like more earlier towards halfway through the season, of last season. And he was saying the style that we're playing, it's basically preparing ourselves for Michkov. At that point, he called him the Russian... I forget what he called him, the Russian something. He called him some type of nickname, the Russian Maniac or something like that. I forget what it was entirely called, the nickname that Torts gave him. But he said a lot of the style that the Flyers are playing, they're trying to prepare themselves for Michkov. And, Michkov, he likes to get down low. He likes the forecheck. He does all these skills. He has an amazing shot. He could facilitate. He could basically do anything on the ice. He's a pest out there. So that's what Torts is preparing his team to do. And for a situation of a Matvei Michkov, Torts is just going to have to let him do his thing because this is our generational talent. We can't be tampering with him basically at this point. And I'm sure Torts understands that. You got to let, even regardless of what you think about, defensive capabilities and all that stuff, you just got to let your good player be your good player and do what his strengths are. So we're just going to have to wait for that. So that was that part of the article basically. And going through everything else. So this is also this is a thread for Anthony Sanfilippo. So this is 4 tweets long, basically. This was from 8:30 this morning. Thread, the latest on Michkov from Flyers league sources. Negotiation on the termination is ongoing. While there's cautious optimism, SKA hasn't yet agreed to anything. How much they get financially to terminate is the hurdle. Flyers can't do anything, but we'll wait and see. As you probably already read elsewhere, from different Flyers reporters, the cost of the termination is purely on Michkov and his agent. The Flyers are not allowed to be involved, and the Flyers can only offer Michkov so much money on an entry-level contract. As such, they can't even make up the difference on a new contract. So with all those technicalities in place, threading the needle now becomes the challenge for Michkov and his agent, but agents are both smart and resourceful. These kinds of deals, while not frequent, aren't unprecedented, which is why there is hope from the Flyers and that this can get across the finish line. It's not easy and has several moving parts, but there is momentum now, which should bring resolution sooner instead of later. That's what that June time frame comes here. There's also another article or a point here. I forget where this is from. So let's see. So this is more Michkov news. This is from, I'm assuming it's another Russian source. So the question states that, I'm assuming this is an interview. I'm not sure what the interview is. Let's see. Is it true that SKA releases Matvei Michkov to Philadelphia? Officially, there is no solution yet, and you can't say we're letting someone go. I'm assuming this is from someone of SKA. You see, it's a serious question. We could talk about some agreements, including rights. You know that Michkov is a high-level player, and if someone wants to buy these rights, let's discuss. Can Philadelphia do it technically? I don't want to disclose a trade secret, but you'll understand that we have invested a lot in Matvei, and if he doesn't become the leader of Philadelphia, then he will ultimately lead for him to come back to the KHL. And I will emphasize that this whole story was influenced by Michkov's family situation. We need to support him in this. It's not a hockey issue. It's a family issue, and we should all support Matvei Michkov. There's, the tragic stuff about his father passing away, all that stuff. So there definitely was a hard time for Matvei Michkov around draft time. It's good that you have a dialogue with the Flyers. This is a long answer here. We have the opportunity to communicate. We know different languages well. It's very important in our work to speak different languages. In general, I advise all children to learn as many foreign languages as possible so that they can talk to everyone. Communication is the basis of everything, and we have a good communication. We communicate with everyone. We are absolutely open, and we are invested a lot in Matvei, I can honestly tell you. I personally did a lot for him to play with us, to move on to us. I personally did it. I invested a lot of time and effort in the development of this player in our organization, but we want to support Matvei as a family. We want to give him an opportunity to develop. If, for example, he can't play on the... Okay, so this is from that mistranslated article. So if he can't play on the first line in Philadelphia, so basically if he can't play for the Flyers and doesn't get the majority time there, if he's sent to the AHL or even the East Coast League, we'll do everything to ensure Michkov returns and plays only in the KHL. Once again, these issues are still in dialogue. We want Matvei to get the maximum support in his family situation. After all, family values are above all else. Why do NHL clubs regularly send players with their contracts to the KHL and we can't do it? Legally, you can call it differently, but that's practically what we do. With Michkov, this is such an example. You can call it whatever you want. However, if he doesn't play, in Philadelphia, basically, he will come back to us. That's all. So it's a lot of interesting stuff here revolving around Matvei Michkov. I believe if there's anything else here, I don't think there is in terms of other news that has come out, well, news or speculation at this point that has come out about around the Matvei Michkov. A lot of the stuff, basically what I'm reading. I think, overall, I think he's coming over. There's just been too much stuff that's been coming around, talking about this, what Danny Briere and Keith Jones especially did at the end of the last season with Fedotov and Kolosov, that, Kolosov came over, and then basically out of the blue here came Fedotov. So... I think there's something to it, and the Flyers definitely this year showed a lot of, support for their Russian players on the team. Yegor Zamula got a lot of top power play minutes. Even though the power play was dreadful, Zamula got a lot of top power play minutes. With the Fedotov situation, they just extended him to a 2-year contract with a little bit of money in there. And, the whole Kolosov thing, even though there was rumors surrounding Kolosov that he was homesick and he wants to go back to the KHL. I'm sure he's homesick, but then they also denied the reports of him wanting to go back to the KHL. So I'm sure that is completely wrapped under the ropes there. But the Flyers have been showing this year that they've been very supportive of their KHL players. And I think they're trying to show something to SKA, Moscow or St. Petersburg, whichever team it is, and showing that, hey, we take care of our Russian players. We take care of them rightfully. So we'll be able to take care of Matvei. And I also think, giving Fedotov that extra little bit of money, because even though I still think paying Fedotov that contract is a little too egregious to that money extent, I think there's a little bit of oomph to it to help try and entice to get Matvei Michkov over here. So there's a lot of moving pieces. There obviously is. Matvei Michkov is a special talent that the Flyers luckily got their hands on. And there's going to be a lot of moving pieces, obviously. And like I said in the beginning of this, I think this is going to dictate what Danny Briere does this offseason. It's going to dictate it. Because if you get Michkov over here, that's a generational talent level player. Obviously, he's not going to dominate the NHL from day one. There's going to be an adjustment period. And if he dominates the NHL from day one, you got a very fucking special talent, and he's going to be one of the best players in the goddamn league, even though I do expect him to be one of the best players in the goddamn league for years to come. Not expecting it from the get-go, because, like I said, adjustment level period. But you never know. You never know. It would be exciting if he does dominate here. Now, there's a lot of things that this Flyers team can do. There's a lot of rumors for them trading around for maybe other, I wouldn't say reclamation projects, but young players that don't have a fit on their current teams just because those other teams are trying to compete. So there's a lot of rumors circling around Martin Necas from Carolina. They just got eliminated by, the New York Rangers and all that stuff. He might not want to stay in Carolina because he doesn't feel like he's getting played enough. There's Cole Perfetti, there's Marco Rossi and all that stuff, Trevor Zegras and all that. So there's a lot of players that this Flyers team can go after and find a way to, maneuver around here. And I do think if you do get Michkov over here early, and like I said, we're going to find this out at some point very soon. It's most likely going to be somewhere in June. And I do think it's going to happen before the draft. Because I think Danny wants this all settled before the draft. So that's going to be a wait-and-see process. What he does at the draft, if he makes any draft trades, depending on what player he drafts. So it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be an exciting journey to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And you do got to stay locked on to a lot of these sources here, especially, Hockey News Hub, because he has a lot of the stuff coming out of the KHL. So we're going to be seeing some interesting things here. I need some water because my throat's dry. I need some hydration. I definitely do. This is going to be a fun time. Because this is the future of the Flyers right here. Danny Briere, Keith Jones, they're very smart individuals. This is a big offseason for them. And if they get Matvei Michkov over here, it's probably going to be even bigger in terms of the plans and the trades that they make and the moves that they make to, find a way to shape this team up to get into the playoffs, basically. They're not, like I said, I'm not expecting them to be Stanley Cup contenders when Michkov comes over here. But it's the terms of how this team is going to progress. And obviously, you got close to the playoffs this year. You collapsed at the end. And yes, overall, fantastic season when you're looking at the entire thing as a total. So, overall, you get Michkov over here. You make your moves in the offseason. And we're going to judge those moves rightfully. If they're the right moves, if they're the proper moves, if they're a fantastic move, we're going to judge all of those rightfully. And you get Michkov over here, depending on who you draft, depending on who you trade for, I don't think they're going to make any major signings. I think a lot is going to come in the trade market because there's definitely some interesting players that you could talk about in terms of trades on this roster. Because if you look at the Flyers cap friendly right now they got their projected cap space is around $500,000. Their cap hit with the LTIR candidates, so cap space with LTIR, they'll have $6 million around there. They got some interesting names. So you got Owen Tippett that's gonna be starting his new contract. You obviously got the Sean Couturier contract, but all the stuff about him switching agencies and all that. A lot of the talk about does he possibly want out of Philadelphia after everything that happened at the end of the season with Torts. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding that. What other players? Players surrounding maybe Joel Farabee. Does Joel Farabee swirl around the trade market at this point of the year? Does he, go for a 1-for-1 or something like that? A lot of people want to bring up him and Martin Necas or something like that. There's a lot of discussion. Is Travis Sanheim going to be wiggled around the trade market again? I know Rasmus Ristolainen was mentioned at some point during the season. What other players? What happens with Travis Konecny, because this is going into the final year of its contract, and are the Flyers going to lock him up long term? There's a lot of question marks surrounding that. Are they going to try to cash in on TK's value? He's 27 years old, going to be turning 28 next season. He's making $5.5 million on the contract. That's a very team friendly deal. And say if the Flyers weren't really in playoff contention next year and they take a step back, and Konechny's having a very good season, do you cash in on that and try to get a big package in return? So, yeah, question mark. Scott Lawton, obviously. Are the Flyers going to finally move on from Scott Lawton this offseason? Because he's also going into the final year of his deal, if I'm not mistaken. It's the final year or the second to last year. No, he still has 2 years left on his deal. He still has 2 years left on his deal. That's the interesting question mark right there. Noah Cates, he's going into the final year of his RFA contract, so he'll need an extension. What happens with Morgan Frost? This will be the final year of his contract. What else? Tyson Forrester. This will be the final year of his contract coming up. Jamie Drysdale. He has 2 more years left until he gets an extension. This will be the last year of Cam York's contract. The goaltending situation, you have 2 years left on both goaltenders. Ersson making 1.45. Fedotov making 3.275. What else? Ristolainen's on injured reserve. And there's a lot of things around here. There's also some players that may be down in the AHL. Does Bobby Brigg take another step in his development? What happens with, Samu Tuilamala? Does he find a way to make a jump next season and, make the team out of training camp? This Hunter McDonald kid that the team is very high on, especially Keith Jones. So that's very interesting right there. He's on a 2-year entry-level contract that starts next season. Oliver Bonk. Does he go back to juniors next year, or does he find a way to spark something? Because right now I believe he's going to be in the Memorial Cup with the London Knights. They just won the OHL championship, so now they're going to be playing for the Memorial Cup over in the CHL. So that'll be him and Denver Barkey. So that'll be very interesting there. So it's a gigantic wait and see process with this organization right now, and it all stems around Matvei Michkov. It definitely does. It definitely does. So if I go to his elite prospect page, a lot of good stats here. Excuse me there. So if we look at his total stats last year on the loan to Sochi in the KHL, in 47 games, he put up 41 points, 19 goals, 22 assists, 26 penalty minutes. He was a -6, but obviously that wasn't his fault because his team was notoriously bad in the KHL. Sochi was probably the worst team in the KHL last season. So, and then for 2022-2023 season, he put up 20 points in 27 games for Sochi. And then when he played in the VHL for St. Petersburg, he put up 14 points in 12 games. Great, I'm going on a sneeze fest here. Jeez, joy. Now my entire train of thought is completely thrown off. But I do want to look up Matvei Michkov KHL records. So if I can look that up, KHL records for him. So this was from Philly Hockey Now. Matvei Michkov falls just short of KHL scoring record, but he is definitely up there in terms of like points per games percentage with a lot of other players. So that's definitely interesting stuff right there. But Matvei Michkov, obviously a lot of the Montreal Canadian fans are going bananas over this because they're still very salty about, them not drafting Michkov. So that's a very funny thing there. But this is going to be some interesting stuff here. It definitely is. I'm very excited for Matvei Michkov. I do think, because just because of the way that everything is going around here, just because of everything the way that's coming out. I think he comes over. I think he comes over. It's just too good to be true right here. It just is. I think Matvei Michkov makes an appearance this year. Whether it's at the beginning of the season, which now I'm expecting it's going to be I shouldn't expect it. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's what everything is sounding like. Obviously, we're going to have to wait until June to hear any type of news surrounding the finalization of this stuff. So, like everything right now, it's just hearsay and it's just reports. So, we're going to have to wait and see what the full package is. But obviously, there's something in the works. There's something in the works for him to try to come to the Philadelphia Flyers before the season starts. So, that'll be very exciting. Imagine seeing Matvei Michkov at rookie camp. That'll be exciting. That'll be very exciting. We do have a voicemail here on the Anytime Hotline, so we might as well get to that. Because we are at the 30-minute point here on the stream before we end it off very soon, before I get to some of you guys here in the live chat as well. So let's get to the voice line here. Let's get to Sean. What does Sean have to say about good old Matvei Michkov?
Michkov mania in full effect. I read so much about this online. A lot of it is paralysis by analysis. You don't really know what to believe. So until reputable sources definitively confirm that the kid is coming over, I'll believe it when it actually happens. But I've said from the jump, I mean, hopefully it does happen this year, but if and when it does, the rebuild gets accelerated big time, because I've fully believed from the start that when Michkov arrives, he's going to dominate the minute he hits the ice. I think internally, this kid is going to show people, like, hey, I'm an elite talent. I can be just as good, if not better, than Connor Bedard.
Oh, Sean. Sean, you're making me excited here. You're making me excited, Sean. He's gonna dominate from minute one, and he's gonna be possibly maybe better than Connor Bedard. Oh, Sean, you're making me excited. Sean, you're making me excited. Sean, you're making me excited. Oh, Sean. Oh, let's continue.
And, playing in Russia against grown men is only going to help this kid when he comes over here. I have a Lindros-type feel to him, that the Flyers, granted this year they had a good year, but were treading water, and then when Lindros hit the ice, things started to change and they became a juggernaut. And I sense the same thing with Matvei. And not only that, but that merchandise and ticket sales and everything else are going to go through the roof. So continue to pray, continue to be optimistic that the kid is actually coming over, but I have a wait-and-see attitude until it's actually confirmed.
No, that's completely understandable. I think he's coming over. I really do. I really think he is coming over. And honestly, yes, because I was talking about this with my father the other day about, because all the Lindros stuff was before I was born, and he always brings that up about how bad the Flyers were from the early 90s on until they got Lindros. And once they got Lindros and the first time he stepped on the ice, things changed. They still weren't a good team until Bobby Clark made all those trades, for Desjardins, John LeClair, and all that stuff. They got Michael Renberg and everything there. They formed the Legion of Doom, and that's when they became a really dynamo team and competed for Stanley Cup. Sadly, they weren't able to finish the ultimate goal. But, yeah, Michkov could probably be that level of hype for a Flyers player on that term of Eric Lindros. Because Eric Lindros was basically supposed to be the next, great thing to Wayne Gretzky, next great thing to Mario Lemieux. So the fact that you possibly have that type of player that can change your entire franchise, and this is not to knock, other great Flyers players over the terms of their career, like, with Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux was not, at the time when he was drafted, he was not a franchise caliber player. He was a great player. He was an elite player. He was the face of the franchise for a very long time. But the ceiling of Matvei Michkov and what he could be for his entire career completely tops anything Claude Giroux could probably ever do, in my opinion. Because Matvei Michkov, generational talent, has a lot of great things surrounding his arsenal. He's a great player. He's going to be a great player. He's going to be one of the greatest players in the league, in my opinion. It just is what I think at this point. Sneeze fest here. Jesus, I got to end this soon. But I just can't wait for him to step on the Wells Fargo Center ice for game one, whenever he plays. My God. I can't wait. So, I see some of you guys down here in the comment section. Also, the internet also freaked out there for a little bit, so it's probably a good time to end the stream rather than not. American Loyalist, this announcement happened on the 50th anniversary of the Flyers Cup, a sign of a jinx. What does Keith Jones actually do in his job? He's the president of hockey operations. He does basically both things. He does the business side and the hockey op side, but he doesn't interfere with what Danny Briere does. He's just going to throw his input in there. Danny Briere has the final say at the end of the day. Keith Jones does both things, basically. Soto, haven't heard from you in a while. I hope they don't trade TK, Mind Freak says. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that front. A lot of things can happen with this offseason, but first, let's settle the Michkov stuff. I think that's the first priority for Danny Briere and company. So, yeah. Exciting stuff here, boys. Let's see how it all plays out. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Great deal. Don't pass it up.